Hello everyone. Today we are going to explore the topic of creativity and design thinking. As a first year engineering student, you are at the start of a journey where problem solving and innovation will play a key role in your careers. This session will give you an overview of how creativity and design thinking can be applied in real world problem solving. Let us start with what do you mean by creativity? Creativity usually follows the four steps. Those are number 1, preparation, number 2, incubation, number 3, illumination, and number 4, verification. To start with, the first step towards creativity is the preparation. So, what do we do under preparation is we gather information about the various aspects related to our problem statement, understand the problem very well by exploring the existing knowledge about it. Next step is incubation. So, here what we actually do is we step back, let your subconscious work more on the problem that we have identified during the preparation. So, this step is very important as you have to work more on the problem, which leads to the next step, which is illumination. Illumination is the step where the famous eureka eureka moment when a new idea strikes arrives. So, this step is very crucial as you actually encounter the solution to your problem in this phase. Next is verification. So, obviously, the idea that we have thought of, you have to test the idea to see the feasibility, that is, whether the idea is actually implementable, or in simple terms, to see if it actually works. So, these are the various stages, and these stages help us to transform the very raw ideas that we have in our mind into a practical solution. Next, let us pause for a while and try to answer this question. What is design thinking? Yes, design thinking is a structured approach to solve human centered problems. So, let us understand the design thinking now in more detail. So, these are the 5 main steps under design thinking. Number 1, empathize. Number 2, define. Number 3, ideate. Number 4, prototype. And number 5, obviously, test. To start with, once again, the first step under design thinking, which is termed as empathize. So, what do we do under empathize? It is a phase where we actually put ourselves into the user's shoes to understand what their really need is. That is, understanding the users and their problems happens under this phase, which is termed as empathize. So, unless you as a developer put yourself into what the user is actually facing, you cannot proceed with an actual problem statement. Next comes define. So, here we try to define more precisely and try to come out with a proper problem statement where the ideas are very clear and we come out with a perfect frame where you can actually put the problem statement. Next comes a phase which is termed as ideate, or in general the process of ideation. So, what do we do under this? It is a phase where we have a brainstorming activity, and in this we come up with number of solutions and finally we end up with the most feasible one. So, what do we mean by feasible is where the problem and the solution both relate to each other very well, and the solution that we have come out, which is a creative solution, must be feasible, that is, it must be practical and implementable as a real one. Next is the phase where you have a prototyping, where you actually build a very quick but a tangible model. Now, this could be a very simple software model or a paper model where you need not have a complete implementation of the solution, but just an overview in terms of a model. Next, as we propose different solution, we need to test the feasibility and the workability of every practical solution. So this is a very important step where a product or a prototype is tested. So we share the prototype with the users who are going to use them actually. The users use them over a period of time, find out the difficulties and the various issues associated or the difficulties that they are facing in using. Then we have to get their feedback and we have to refine by applying the different solutions that the users has suggested. So this is the phase of testing where we actually test the prototype by redoing the process of providing it to the user, getting their feedback, refining, and again doing the same loop under the testing phase. This process of involving all these 5 steps, namely empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test, need not be always a linear process. That means each process need not be followed by the other as we have defined the sequence. Then what does it mean? You may move back and forth between these steps. That is, you may start with any step under these and follow a sequence of your own. Now, understanding every process deeply, first comes the empathize or the empathy. So what do we mean by empathy is you have to understand the user's needs very accurately. Then comes a phase where you need to define, that is, write down a very clear problem statement from the inputs that you have obtained from the user by transforming that into a legible text which defines your problem statement. Next, you have to observe, listen carefully, and very well engage with your end users to understand their needs. This is again an important step where you can have various methods to get their feedbacks by putting up a questionnaire, asking them questions, getting the answers, formulating a solution, taking interviews of the users, and once you understand, you have to define the problem very clearly. For example, we can assume a thing like answering the question, how might we redesign the classroom to improve student engagement and learning? I hope you understand the question very well because it relates very well to your phase where you are learning in a closed classroom and the engagement from your side may be less. So, you could propose different alternatives like online learning or a discussion forum or any other way to improve your engagement in the learning process. Next, now we have to generate the ideas very freely. What do you mean by this? That means you need not focus on the quantity first, but once you have a brainstorming session and you have a number of solutions with you, next you have to focus on only one practical and implementable solution. That is, even though you have number of solutions, at every phase of your discussion, you have to narrow down the list by eliminating one non-practical solution, thereby ending up in the very much feasible and an implementable one. Next comes, what do you mean by brainstorming? As you have to sit together with other developers and maybe a number of users where you have an exchange of ideas where a solution is put up by every member in the discussion forum. So, brainstorming has as many ideas as possible. Then, in this process, as you have many solutions, wild ideas are also welcome. After this brainstorming session, you have to select the most practical and the promising one as we have discussed earlier, which is carry forwarded to the next phase. Now you have a list of solutions, so create a tangible version of your idea very quickly. Now, what do you mean by tangible is again, which could be actually implementable or can be converted into a good solution. Next comes a prototyping phase where a prototype can be either a very simple sketch or a very simple paper model or any other way in which you can create a physical model out of it, or maybe a digital mock-up. The ultimate goal is speed and tangibility, but not perfection. Mind this, at this phase, you need not come up with a perfect solution, but you need to interact more with it so that the others can also have an interaction. Next comes the testing phase. The prototype that you have come up with, you have to test this thoroughly with the real users and you have to collect their feedback. Then, what is the advantage that the testing phase provides? The testing shows what works and what needs improvement. It often leads to redefining the problem or creating better prototypes. Now, why should engineering students learn all these creativity and design thinking? So, the answer is these skills prepare you for real world challenges by improving creativity, problem solving, collaboration, and ability to develop user focused solutions. Creativity and design thinking form a powerful approach to problem solving. Mastering this process helps future engineers create impactful solutions that meet real needs. These are the references I have used to prepare this presentation. Thank you for listening, and I encourage you at this point to start applying these steps in your academic projects. Thank you once again.